Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. This is the recruiting workshop number 5. And today we're going to be talking all about the NLI switching now to the athletic grant and aid. This might be coming up for your athlete in November, or you might just be on here because you want to learn, about what's going to be ahead, since these are some pretty big changes. So we're going to get started in a few minutes here. I just want to remind everyone that if you are a JH family currently, you can receive this recording afterwards, after it's done. Um, and we like to make that available to, as many of our families, current paying families that are clients right now. And so you can email me and let me know if that's something you would like. I'm happy to get that link sent to you. My email is jill@jhicksconsulting.com. All right, so if you're new here, my name is Jill. I started JH Consulting about over 12 years ago now, 14 years maybe. We moved to a city where there's no college gymnastics, and so I reinvented myself basically and wanted to help athletes get recruited to college, especially in the sport of gymnastics. But we can help athletes of other sports as well, and we do have someone who specializes in aquatics. And we also have the ability to help athletes work on their college essays. Christy's amazing. And we have Mike from UCLA who also helps athletes prepare for college as far as conditioning. So, something we hear all the time is many of the freshmen arrive and they aren't really ready for the conditioning they're going to be doing in college. And it is a little bit different. Mike also helps with, he does athletes who are returning to sport with maybe an injury and they already have PT and they have, um, they're getting close to their release to being back in the gym, but they don't know if they're really, really ready. And since he's worked with so many gymnasts, he was at UCLA for 25 years working with the gymnasts there and athletes of all sports. And so he sets up an app that he has so he can do it all online. He meets with the athlete and the parent and helps athletes in that capacity as well. We have both short and long-term plans. And so if you have interest, all you need to do is go to our website, jhicksconsulting.com, and we will um, share with you what we do and maybe what plan might work for your family. Okay, let's get started on this topic today. I'm going to do my very, very, very best to share with you the information that I know. I just returned from a trip to Fayetteville, Arkansas. I spent some time with my buddy, Miss Val from UCLA, and it was very good. And we had lunch or dinner with Kyla Ross and also Jordan Weber and her new baby. So cute. But I also had lunch with the Missouri coach because the assistant coach was in town. So I've been asking everyone I know, all the coaches, what is all of this going to look like in terms of the roster limits, the switching from national letter of intent over to what's called now athletic grant and aid. They're calling it GIA. So if you hear that term, that is the change from national letter of intent. So, not to be confused with name, image, and likeness, NIL. So, there's a lot. There's a lot to consider here. But the good news is once your athlete starts to get recruited and goes on visits and then gets a verbal offer, the college coaches will walk you through typically this part of the recruiting process. So you're not on your own at all. But so today is just to kind of give you a broad sketch of what would be ahead and just some of the stuff you might want to be aware of. All right, so college recruiting workshop number 5, navigating the end of the NIL and the shift to athletic grant in aid. Here we go. As of October 2024, the NCAA Division I Council has officially eliminated the 60-year-old National Letter of Intent program, and it's effective immediately. So for the class of 2025 and beyond, this is going to all be changed. And it was driven by the reform lawsuit, House versus NCAA. So that's why things changed, so that hopefully the NCAA doesn't get sued again. All right, so it marks a pivotal change in how student athletes commit to college programs. The National Letter of Intent is a binding, National Letter of Intent was a binding standardized contract promising 1 year of attendance in exchange for an athletic financial aid. This has been replaced by direct, again, the athletic grant and aid, and they're calling it a GIA agreement between the student athlete and the institution. The purpose remains the same as the National Letter of Intent. You're securing financial aid while ending your recruitment to other schools, and the new system emphasizes institutional autonomy, transparency, and alignment with emerging revenue share models. So the old National Letter of Intent basically could not accommodate the new rev share and NIL. So that's why they had to change the whole grant and aid, is what they're calling it. And that's why it had to change. So if you're wondering, that's the bottom line. So now that schools can distribute up to $20 to $22 million annually to all the schools that opt into revenue share, athletes starting in 25-26 academic year will now receive what's called an athletic grant in aid. And so today we're going to focus on some of the key differences and also just talk about what is signing day, because that's coming up. So when is National Signing Day? National Signing Day is November 12th for all Division I D2 sports outside of football and basketball. Athletes do not have to sign during what that is titled as the early signing period. So basically, November 12th, that week, athletes can officially be considered signing in the early period, but that's not the only time they can sign. Okay, that's just the early signing period. The process of signing is when the athlete receives their written offer of athletic aid, and then they have 7 days of the issue date to get that signed and sent back to the university. Again, the college coach will be going over all of this in detail with you as a family. If you receive the written offer before the signing period, you must wait until 7 a.m. of the first date of your signing period of your sport. The student athlete's parent or legal guardian must also sign this. So be sure you're together, able to take care of the paperwork and get it signed and turned back to the university within 7 days of the starting date of the early signing period. Now, if you just receive one and you're not in November, let's say you're in February and you receive an athletic grant and aid in the mail, you would have, I believe, 7 days from the date you receive it. Okay. Remember also, college coaches cannot be present when athletes sign their athletic grant and aids. Signing means two things. You are committed to 1 year at the university you're signing the paperwork for. You do not need to sign another agreement after the first year. The school is required, though, to let you know if you're not going to be renewed by July 1. So that's interesting. So nobody's been able to answer exactly if a coach has verbally committed to an athlete that they're committing to your athlete for 4 years, for example. I've been asking coaches, will that be in the contract? Will it be in the athletic agreement? And coaches have told me that in a way it won't be on the contract, but it will be somewhere in writing. So some coaches have said that. Other coaches have told me, no, we can only do 1 year. So that's something you definitely want to find out from your university what that's going to look like. You can ask the college coach, and or when you receive the athletic grant and aid, you want to look at the dates and when does the aid start and when does it finish. And if it's my understanding, all the stuff I've read, they're not going to be multiple year contracts that you would sign. However, this is why it's really important, whatever university or head coach, and I know that can change, but whatever head coach is making the verbal offer, you want to be sure you feel really comfortable with them, because if they're only allowed to verbally offer you 4 years, but they can't send you a contract, it has to be year by year, then you're going to be trusting that that coach is going to be sending one each year. Now, from the coach's perspective, from what I'm reading, they have the option to not renew, and there's certain reasons that they cannot renew. That's always been the case, though, even with national letter of intents. You supposedly could not remove a scholarship based on their outcome or how they did that season, or an injury. Those were two things, but I don't see that in any of the information. So you want to be sure you talk to the coach and say, how does this work if my daughter gets injured? How does this work if she doesn't get renewed? Is this your word telling me that it is going to be a multiple year commitment to her? I would say with gymnastics, because everything's pretty much written when you look it up online for football and basketball. A lot of it is driven by those two sports. But in gymnastics, most of the college coaches I've known abide by their verbal commitment. So they keep their verbal commitment. But it is something to be aware of and something to think about when you are committing, to a college. Okay. Right. So, uh, all right. Once you sign a written offer, no other school can recruit you, and you're not permitted to contact coaches at other institutions. Okay, so I'm not sure. I get that, and I solely support that. To me, it's really important that you basically what it's saying is you stop recruiting. You're done talking to other college coaches. And I think that is really important. And I do have families sometimes that ask me, not when they've signed, but usually verbally, if they've verbally committed, can they still talk to other coaches? And the answer is yes, you can, but I don't encourage that. When word gets out that you're doing that, a college coach is not going to be comfortable with that who's verbally committed to your athlete. So it's really important to wait and not commit back until you're 99.9% sure that's where you want to sign or go to college or walk on, depending on, what your situation is. How do I get an NCAA financial aid agreement? The college providing the athletic aid will send you the official agreement through one of the following ways: express mail, courier service, regular mail, email, or fax. All right. Um, so here are some of the comparisons from the past. National letter of intent versus new GIA. So in the past, the national letter of intents were centralized via the NCAA and the Collegiate Commissioners Association. So it all went through the NCAA, right? Now it's institution specific. So whatever college your athlete is going to sign with, The new athletic grant and aid are going to be institution specific. So I'm really curious to see how different they're going to be. This is the first year they've done it. And we'll be asking our clients and talking to them so that we'll have more information on that. But that's the difference. The NCAA rules are still, you know, you have to abide by, but it is institution specific. Um, all right, let's see. In the past, the National Letter of Intent was a standardized 1 year commitment. However, in the past, you would see dates for 4 years, 3 years, 2 years. You were allowed to give multiple years on the National Letter of Intents. This is where it gets sticky. It says that athletic grant and aids are 1 year only, but I've heard both on that. So keep your eyes open. Um, all right. And what does the financial commitment mean to the athlete? So it's definitely tuition, fees, room and board, and books. That's what the athletic aid is usually. And now it can include more things like, um, so basically it's also tuition, fees, books, room and board. But if you are going to be a part of Rev Share or NIL, that information may also be involved in your athletic grant and aid. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that's going to look like, but we will keep our eyes open on that. All right, let's see. As far as flexibility, rigid release is required for a coach. If there's a coaching change, that kids can appeal if they want to go to a different college. They often, win those type of appeals. And I would say impact on transfers, sign separate aid agreements. There's no recruiting ban post sign. And the same with athletic grant and aids. Eligibility, tier would be you have to meet, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more, academic standards. All right. So for NCAA women's gymnastics sport, November 10th through 13th, Monday through 30 is the initial week for fall signing date. So this is also a dead period. No face-to-face contact with a college coach. Whether you're signing or you're still in the recruiting process, just know that that week is a dead period. You can still talk on the phone, you just can't have face-to-face contact. How does the signing process work under this new system? Here's the basics. One, you'll receive the offer. You want to review it carefully, all the details. Number two, the key dates, like I said, are what I just shared for the sport of gymnastics. So it's coming up. So a lot of officially November 12th is when a lot of uh, athletes in the sport of gymnastics, but also athletes at large will be signing. Number three, you want to sign and submit. And remember that typically you would stop the recruiting process, of course. You want to celebrate responsibly, number four. So some high schools have a signing day and some don't, I've heard, don't allow gymnasts to do that which is so sad because they're not doing a sport at the actual school. So you have to find that out. Every school is probably a little bit differently. Um, let's see. We already mentioned that. Okay. What student athletes need to know. So some of the essential tips are remember the new GIA locks you in for 1 year and it's still binding, just like the NLI was. Be sure to read for all clauses and non-renewal information. So examples would be what happens if my daughter's injured or she has a poor performance? How will there be a renewal? Can we anticipate a renewal? Is there an appeal process? Schools must notify the athlete, like I told you earlier, by July 1 if they're not going to renew of the next year, the next summer after their freshman year. Academic and eligibility first. So signing doesn't waive admissions. You still have to maintain your GPA test scores and register with the NCAA, or your aid can be ineligible. You can combine with other aid. Okay, I am hearing this consistently that even some of the big schools are asking all the gymnasts to apply for academic money at the university. And my guess is it's just going to save the athletic department some money. So don't be surprised if the school that you have verbally committed to contacts you and said, okay, when you apply, I also want you to apply for athletic scholarship money. Okay, so don't be surprised. I'm hearing it a lot. Um, so you can combine with other aid with your GIA, which will cover usually tuition fees, books, room, and board. But you can stack these with your FAFSA, so any FAFSA or Pell Grant money, merit awards, NIL deals. But you will have to file annually with FAFSA. And one of my questions would be, what if the athlete is on some athletic money, some uh, academic, and you're one of their top athletes, and the coach said you will be scholarshiped every year. What if you have a bad semester or bad term academically? What will happen? Usually you get put on probation and you have another semester to bring your GPA up. But I think that's a question. If I was a parent, because of these changes that we're hearing, that I would definitely, not to alert them that your athlete's not going to do well, but it's an important thing to ask. It's super important for you to know. Um, it's saying that transfers are going to get new guardrails due to these GIAs. So if transferring, you want to enter the portal first, and then post signing, you're off limits to other recruiters, aiming to reduce portal hopping. All right. Oh, I see now what that actually means. Yes. The potential downside is less standardization means agreements could vary. So remember what I said in the beginning, that the schools are individualizing the grant and aids. So they could look different at each university. So it's really important to read the small print and know what you're signing. All right, let's see. Positive steps. Consult a recruiting advisor or a compliance expert before signing at your university. Always track updates through the NCAA.org. And if issues arise, like a coach leaves, you can request a release promptly. And usually they're pretty flexible about something like that. Okay, so what are some additional tips? Again, a reminder, the school will send you all the information you need, and your coach will explain it over the phone the week prior, usually to the November week of signing. Read every part of the contract, especially small print and details of termination. Will the scholarships be written for multiple years? We talked about that earlier. What if you're a walk-on? So you will not sign a contract, but you will sign and pretend and celebrate for sure. You cannot sign on a college campus. And if the recruit changes their mind about an institution for which they've signed an agreement, the basic penalty loss is 1 year of eligibility. However, like I said, there is an appeal process. The agreement is binding even if the coach who offered the letter leaves the college. Okay, when does it become null and void? That's it, if you are not admitted to the university academically, if you fail to meet eligibility requirements from the NCAA, or the institution decides to cut your sport. So that's pretty much what I have for today. I hope that was helpful. I definitely would like to hear any questions that you all might have. So I'm going to open the chat over here, and feel free to type in any questions that you you might have about this topic or about recruiting in general. That's totally fine too. Happy to answer. Um, and if you have interest in JH Consulting, just go to our website and click on Get Started, fill out the forms page, and one of our advisors will give you a call, typically within a 24-hour period. So I think after November, that week of signing, we are going to be a lot more informed. And we as advisors are going to be talking to our girls that are signing, finding out details, and definitely sharing that with our families because it's really hard to get information. And what I'm also finding is, which I thought would happen. Many of the college coaches don't want to share the details of their information. However, at my dinner the other night with some college coaches, they did say some interesting things that I thought I would pass along. A lot of the teams are voting to not give if they have a choice. So let's say a team receives $200,000 in rev share money, and some schools are giving the most money to the athlete who contributes the most. So probably has the highest all around or is an All-American or, has some kind of titles that way. But the girls on some teams are voting to please just divvy it out equally so that every girl on the team is given the same amount of money, no matter how you perform or not, because they don't want that to be something on their team where girls get discouraged. Like, I didn't get anything, or I got so little and so got so much. So every college coach will decide how they want to divvy out rev share if they're involved in red share. But I thought that was really interesting that a couple of the schools that I talked to, they preferred to um, have the rev share be equal among everybody on the team. Another big question parents are asking me today before I hopped on here was, um, it looks like our university is adding more than 20 athletes. Why is that? And so we are also going to go through an awkward year where I've shared this before. Athletes can be cut December 1 on a gymnastics team. So that's coming up. And if they're what's called a designated student athlete, they can transfer and be on a team and it won't count against that team's roster. So that's going to put more than 20 on a team possibly. So there you go. That's can only last the duration of the kids who were on teams last year. So that's kind of interesting. Here's a question. When should the athlete register with the NCAA Eligibility Center? We typically don't recommend you rush into that and do it like day one of ninth grade, but maybe at the end of ninth grade, because you're putting in information about their classes and their grades and all of that. You can fill it out day one of ninth grade, but you can also wait. I even have families that don't fill it out till 10th grade. As long as you fill it out, that's what's important. And it's going to ask you Division 1, 2, or 3. So you sometimes don't know that. So you can wait. There's no rush. You just would go back and put in the classes. Let's say you didn't fill it out till your junior year. You just go back and, look at your transcripts and fill it in. What were your grades? What did you take freshman, sophomore, junior year? And the rest is pretty much basic information. But until you start going on visits or get a verbal offer and sign, you don't have to have the eligibility number now. So you can wait till the end of ninth grade. It's no problem. Great question, though. What else is on your mind? I've got one more minute here. Anybody have any questions? No? All right. Well, I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us here at JH Consulting. This is where I'm going to be now instead of Facebook Live. So I'll be doing workshop number 6 in a couple more weeks. And I hope you all have a great rest of your beautiful fall day, and we will see you at the next recruiting workshop.